It's showtime. It's showtime.
It's showtime. We are here. We are
We
here.
are
Happy
live.
November 1st.
How did
Good
that happen?
Lord. I know.
It doesn't make any sense to me at all. I'm looking at the calendar thinking, what? That's just crazy.
Yes. And it's different. I don't know why. Like, yes, it just hit different. Like, yes, there's Halloween, but it's November 1st. Like,
I
there's
know.
only 2 months, less left in the year. You got all the holidays right around the corner. Should be Christmas shopping. It just like, damn, this year
I know,
has
it's crazy.
just flown by.
It's crazy. I
Yeah.
know. It's funny because I've been seeing a lot sort of on social media about people who are like, okay, put away Halloween so we can, we can move on to like Thanksgiving. I'm hosting Thanksgiving this year. So I'm like, I better get my head around that. Like, that's kind of a big deal. And
Yep, yes, I understand. My son-in-law's family is coming up here for the first time, so we'll be doing the big Thanksgiving hosting as well.
nice.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway. So, all
Yeah.
right. Well, let's get into stuff because there's some really interesting stuff. And,
It was.
when I'm, again, like letting people under the hood about our process, Lenny and I are sharing links back and forth. And, one of the things that Lenny was privy to, saw on LinkedIn and probably has some insider scoop too, because of a solid working relationship with P&G, is the idea that P&G set a deadline for quantitative online sample providers to be certified in it's ISO or ISO 20252,
Yep.
which emphasizes data quality standards. And I just thought that's interesting because I know when I used to work for a full-time supplier, those ISO certifications were a big deal. And I just think this one's worth talking about because of some of the things that are in this article. So why don't you kind of give high level, like your point of view, but not in the article, in the research, when you click on this LinkedIn post and you read a little bit more, like there's some things in here that I think everybody can learn from about like KPIs and stuff. So you go ahead and riff and then I'll share what I thought was interesting too.
Sure. Well, I mean, background. P&G has always led the debate around data quality.
Yeah.
They've been very vocal about that. They've been on stage at IDX,
Yep.
multiple times on this topic. So it is a big deal. There's not many mechanisms in place to force the issue, except for ISO certification. So
Yeah.
it's a point of leverage for them
Yeah.
to try and force folks along, because they take it really seriously. So there's the context, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thing that they're doing that. It raises visibility. Now, whether the ISO certification fixes the problem or not,
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah. And what they're saying is, again, if you follow this link trail, P&G notes the need for researchers to easily be able to see data quality results at the study level. I thought that was really interesting because you and I have been talking about partners have to show, right, that they are taking data quality measures, but also seeing it at the study level, I think is interesting. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but interesting. And then there's another thing in here that says, as proof of performance, the company will request standardized reporting of key KPIs, and average time to complete the study, number of panelists who failed to complete the study. Like, by the way, also reporting on those metrics.
Yeah.
And I just think that's also really important for anybody who is responding to an RFP from any of the large companies right now that have these procurement departments and some of these standards in place. Like, hey, if I were on that full service supplier side, I'd be making sure I show examples of this type of reporting against KPIs, so that I'm ahead of it and I show them, by the way, not only do I know this is a requirement, I know this will be something that we'll deliver against. Here's what that looks like. Like, I'd be way ahead of this if I were full service at this point.
Absolutely. And this it's easy. Oh, okay. Well, they're doing this directly with the panel companies they work with. That is a mistaken assumption, right? This has a ripple effect to every supplier that they use. And although they are focusing on quant for the moment, you
absolutely
pretty good authority. It's going to apply to qual as well. And actually, I know that some of the suppliers they use already have ISO certification on this, and they're working more with them.
Right.
So it's this it's not just shot across the bow. I mean, it's kind of a direct hit with a pretty good sized cannonball to say, hey, it's time we work through this, and it's going to have implications.
Yeah.
So so hats off
Yep.
to Curdy and Michael Lancor and the whole team that are helping to push this through. It needs to happen, and that is probably one of the coolest things about P&G, just in general, right?
Yeah.
That they are a participant in the industry, and they
Yeah.
always have been a very active participant,
Mm.
and when they lead, others will follow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and we need that. We have to have a buyer sometimes put their foot down.
Yeah.
So thank you, P&G,
Yeah.
for continuing to espouse the issue and for
Yeah.
putting your money putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Raising the bar for everybody. So
yep.
speaking of leaders, I want to segue into one of these product launches from the week, which,
Okay.
EY is not necessarily somebody that you're thinking about, in the insights industry specifically, right? It's a different type of insights and intelligence that they're generating there. But EY
Yeah.
launched this competitive edge platform, right? An AI-driven engine incorporating Microsoft's Gen A technologies for market insights. Okay,
Mhm.
so a little bit different than maybe anything anybody's doing at the category or brand or product level. But I thought this was really cool because they are a leader showing how the goal is really I shouldn't say the goal. That's not the right language. An objective right now is to get at this data querying, right? Like, let's
Mhm.
have this system in place to interact with data, to chat with data, to explore. I think the words they used was interrogate a rich set of data and insights. And I'm like,
Yes.
okay, they're doing it at EY. And you know what that means. That means they're probably doing it certainly at the others in the big four there. And
Yep.
we need to, follow what they're doing because that's business intelligence, competitive intelligence, and insights are feeding intelligence at a different level right now. That's my
Yep.
2 cents.
100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, you dig in a little bit more. It's interesting. They're a consulting company. They're recognizing there's things they can't charge consulting prices for anymore, but they
Yeah.
want to keep stickiness with their clients.
Yeah.
So creating tools like this that create efficiencies, both internally for them, for their consultants, and
Yeah.
externally for their clients. Um, it really is. It's pretty clever, and
Yeah.
it makes me think about what McKinsey did years ago with Periscope.
Yeah.
When they launched that research component that was kind of stuff McKinsey wouldn't normally mess with,
Yeah.
ad
Yeah.
tracking, things like that. Those weren't McKinsey solutions, but it was an increased share of wallet, increased stickiness with the clients, kind of a land and expand, even though they were doing it at a different business model
Yeah.
than the core. And I think we'll see a lot more of that,
Yeah.
and showing the power of connecting data and unlocking data across multiple business issues. And AI
Yeah.
is the tool that does
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So,
Yep.
all right. So again, everything is
Yep.
going to segue today. We're going to segue to segue to segue to segue.
All right.
Why don't you share what's going on with Zappi? Because I know you have a longer history with Zappi. As our first competition window, and you talk about them a lot. And tell everyone about this system, this AI-driven innovation system.
Yeah. Well, they've been very public about this, right? They just launched their book, and they've talked, on the podcast with Stefan, and so that nobody should be surprised by this. They've telegraphed it for years of where they were
Yeah.
going, to be the platform for the data, utilize the client, the customer data, house that, and use that to unlock more capabilities. And first, they were doing it with creative,
Yeah.
which was kind of their core. Now they're doing it with innovation.
Yeah.
And is powered by AI. I think that's just at a broad level. That is uh, any company that houses a significant amount of client data, um, regardless of what it is. Qualtrics on the CX side, or Ipsos is doing brand trackers, or Zappi that's doing, you know, uh, 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 innovation and creative, yada yada yada. Right? You put any
Yeah.
company in there. Behaviorally does it with pack testing. You're housing all that data, and you're using LLMs to unlock new capabilities, to interrogate it, to profile, use synthetic sample that idea. You're sitting on all that. Brox is doing it. I mean, there's so many companies that are doing a variation on a theme. But the differentiator is when you become the platform, when you become the default solution for a large chunk of business within a brand, and it is housed there. That makes that a whole lot easier. So we're going to see many companies. Actually, I would say probably every platform, every big data collection platform out there is doing some variation of this idea in some form or fashion right now.
What I liked about this one, and if you dig into the press release, is that they're talking about an innovation process and how they're adding it to every step along the way. So rather than just say we have this tool, this is really about creating, testing. It's the whole thing though. It's every step along the way of this, like design thinking ish platform, or process. And there's a quote in here. If you click on, if you the people click on this link to the MR Web press release, which is where this one was from, it talks about determining in a matter of seconds how to strengthen its concepts and maximize their chance at success. And so how many concepts in the work I used to do did I see that we do some qualitative testing with to strengthen them and all that? And it was very laborious. I loved doing it. I enjoyed it, and there was always, anyway, I just think this is a really cool possibility that, anyway, good for Zappi.
Well, and good call out, right? There's the general stuff, and then there's the business issue specific, right? And this is an example of that. Historically, bases, they're forecasting tools, like the next generation of those type of solutions, right? That we've dealt with for a long time. That use normative databases and are predictive, but now just a hell of a lot more flexibility and depth that's available to them.
I also thought it was cool that they quoted a client right in the press release from Reckitt. I'm like, way to go. Like that, to me, I'm like, they know what they're doing there. There's no surprise that they know what they're doing, because that was a very good testimonial for the process with a trusted, credible brand. I'm like, all right, I see you, Zappi. I see what you're doing there.
Absolutely. And somebody besides PepsiCo, since
I know, right? Right, exactly.
They do have more clients than PepsiCo. They do. They have a pretty large.
They have others. They have others.
Yeah, we're just going to see more and more of this. I know we have this stuff to get to, but you called this out, and I think it's important. We've been saying it, and we see it in other data sources that have come out recently. Grit, the Qualtrics report we talked about last week. We're seeing it in financial performance of businesses, of some of the public companies. The shift away from executing a primary research project that we would normally do to try it, like you said, the concept ideation process or optimization. That's happening, right? Because we can explore existing data to do that. Now, we still need to validate and do all of those things, and that's still going to be a primary research component necessary for that. But that shift away and how that changes the research process and budget allocation and speed and efficiency, it is well underway. And we just have to recognize that it's just changing how we do things, because we can do things certainly faster and cheaper and arguably better.
Yeah. Which is a great segue to this next kind of product launch, right? In Moment, introducing AI-powered active listening agents for surveys. It's all about real-time feedback, increasing actionable responses. So I don't know much about In Moment, but this press release here is all about tackling survey fatigue, right? So
I don't know a whole lot about them. Yes, but I would just characterize another example of the logical kind of low-hanging fruit application of the technology, right? It is interesting that they're focused on the agent concept. Right. It is an interactive component, as if you're talking to a person. And even though it's not, we all know it's not, but And that does have an effect on fatigue, right? It does. The engagement is different. I After last week, I did the 10K human survey that we put out there, right? The chat survey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that was it was a much more engaging
Yeah,
experience.
it really was. I know.
'Cause I was having a conversation, and I knew that, it was a robot, and yeah, it was kind of canned responses, and I know that.
Yeah. I
But
know it felt different, right? It felt
it
different
did
doing
feel
that one. I
different.
was like, "Oh, this is okay."
Yes,
Yeah.
and just like if I am using chat, I am polite
Yeah.
and conversational in my requests.
I know. We're going there.
Yeah,
We're gonna
because it
we have
just
to be nice to these surveys now. It felt different.
right.
It felt like, "Oh, wait a minute. I'm nicer to that than I've been to any quant survey," or I was nicer to that than any quant survey, which I'm like, "Screw you. You don't need my answer." Not that I've done that, but you know what I mean. This was different. Well, and here's what's
Agreed.
cool. What's cool about this, again, if you click on this particular release for this In Moment survey, they talk about a study that they did. So appealing to researchers, right? Where they kind of show some of the findings to the research they did
Mhm.
on this new feature. AI powered active listening led respondents to being 2.4 times more likely to provide actionable feedback.
Mhm.
That makes me go, that's interesting. 24% more likely to share insights about their intent,
Mhm.
making more opportunities for engagement. Interesting. I'd have to see what that looks like, but it increased word count by 70% per question.
Yep,
That was interesting. I'm like,
that is
oh, look at
interesting.
you, open end. Your people are being a little interesting. That's all.
Yeah.
And there's a few more in there, but I was like, oh, that is interesting. If our survey results get stronger by adding these agents when they're credible response. Anyway, it's
Right.
an interesting
Yeah, and
time.
allows us to explore more,
Yeah.
right? So again, that blending of what we think of as quant and qual,
Yeah.
uh, that that barrier between them is real thin now.
Yes, yes. Speaking of thin, every time you say something, I'm like, "Oh, there's a good segue."
There
This
we
is
go.
it pronounced David or David? Daivid. Is that David or
I'm
that?
not sure. I think it's
Who knows what they're doing with Daivid?
you're right.
But I like it because it's another case of AI speeding things up without sacrificing quality, right?
Mhm.
So it's an AI powered solution predicting attention, emotions, memory, and impact, brand impact of advertising. And it's not the first time we've talked about a solution here. I know, following the ARF, have gotten privy to a couple of these, but this is pretty cool in terms of predictive abilities and capabilities.
And with the focus on emotion, on non-conscious measurement, right?
Yeah.
The underlying thesis is the same as with facial coding. There's a database, a normative database there that we're referencing. Or
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going to sneeze.
Bless you in advance. Sometimes when you
Oh,
say
I'm
bless
not.
you in advance, no, because I said bless you first. Sorry. It's a
Thank
trick.
you. Um, I don't know, it may still pop out. My apologies in advance if it does. But yeah, you have a lot of data.
Yeah.
These things are all based on any of them, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
EEG or facial coding or text analytics or whatever. There's underlying data that has you built models off of to predict outcomes and match stimuli to that. AI is really good at that stuff, and
Yeah.
now applying it where it makes the most sense, which
Yeah.
is around advertising testing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
They
uh,
said this one is trained on tens of millions of human responses to ads. And I was wondering when I read that, like the whole Malcolm Gladwell outliers concept of 10,000 hours.
right,
There's a part of me that got to oh, sorry, big stretch. I have to say big stretch to the
that's
dog, right? You know that
she's
big stretch.
beautiful.
Thank you. She's a good girl. Anyway, I wondered if the tens of millions of human responses to ads, if there is a point where it's I don't know. I just thought that number stood out at me because of
Yes,
that idea. The tens of millions of human responses gives it a little bit more reliability as a tool.
sure.
And there's a quote from Tom Saunter at Group M, who is using this platform. They also mentioned somebody at Nike is using it. They didn't mention the name though, but another kind of testimonial about Group M seeking a scalable solution for a while now, and they feel like they have one here. So an analysis of over 3,000 videos, like that's so interesting, and it's a predictor of actual performance. So again, like AI, when it comes to media and ad response and ad testing, is pretty
It's
cool.
really kind of a no-brainer, right? I think I've said it here. If not, I'll say it again. If you're in the business of creative testing, that's service driven, you probably need to take a real hard look at the business model. Because that is the lowest hanging fruit of disruption here. So yeah, it's cool stuff. I will. One thing though, I am hearing more and more from the folks that are pioneers at that example. It does not take millions or even thousands. That it looks like you can build really robust synthetic personas, agents, off of like 100.
Interesting.
So that's, I'm sure our statisticians would, are aghast. And I'm sure there's limits of complexity to that, but we are not always talking about big data. Sometimes we really are talking about some relatively small and manageable data sets that fit right in the researcher wheelhouse to do something
interesting. Yeah. So interesting. So speaking of table stakes, Peakator introducing AI summary. When you look at this one, this to me looks like table stakes. This click on that platform and I'm like, yes, it seems so much simpler from everything we've just been talking about, but like, yeah, pretty much you need to have this type of AI assist with summaries and conclusions and action points. This is all about, having a tab offering on any kind of platform for summaries, conclusions, and action points. Like, yes, pretty much. I mean, this is sort of like what Yabble was doing with their executive summaries a year ago. Like if you have an AI tool, it needs to be generated. It needs to be generatively summarizing what's there in a way that's workable and usable. So take a look at Peakator if you haven't broached this area yet, because yes, that to me is like, yes, table stakes. I looked at it and I already thought, well, duh. And it's funny because I didn't want to feel that way for them. I wanted to be happier for them, but I'm like, this is kind of basic without, and I don't mean that in an insulting way, but it's like, yes, I already feel that this should have been happening a year ago, this type of launch.
Look, we still within Greenbook and Grid, right? We still do an export from our friends at Forsta, into a tab package, into Displayer. That's what we utilize, and export into Excel tabs. That is still what we do, because that's what we're used to doing. And then we take that and we, with other platforms, that process works. Doesn't mean it's efficient. Right. And I will say this to Peakator and anybody else out there, please, for God's sake, please make your system so everything is exportable as an editable file into PowerPoint, because regardless of what you think, that is still the primary platform that 90% of all researchers and business people use to communicate information. So if you make it some pain in the ass to export into a PDF or just an object, just an image, that sucks. You're just missing.
I know.
Obvious
it's
win.
It's like we went right. We skipped. We skipped making sure everything was, overtly like a usable in our current system. When when everything became AI, we're like, let's not forget basic usability.
Yes,
so it's pretty funny.
I want to drill on that for 1 second, because I want to tell you guys something. Right. So I've been using AI more. Right. And I've developed this process, but it's a pain in the ass process, right? Well, I'll develop an outline for a deck utilizing ChatGPT. Oh, that's great. Here's my outline. I'll load that up in a Dectopus, right? Oh, great. Now I've got my core charts. Okay. But they're not editable. If I export into PowerPoint, it's just an image. So here's my hack. I have to export it into PDF. Then I convert the PDF into a PowerPoint. to make it editable. And it's like, come on, that's just stupid.
I know.
So anyway, so guys, if you're doing this stuff, just make it work in
Make it
PowerPoint.
workable, usable. We need them. We need everything to be usable.
Yes.
So
all right, we got other stuff. So
all right, yeah, we have other stuff. I think these are there's really two big tech developments that I wanted to touch on because these are big ones. These are two big ones. So first of all, iPhone, Siri, right? Like, hold everybody, you have your phone. I'll hold mine up. It has my grandson on it. Like, come on.
You planned that, didn't you? You had that.
Sidebar into how cute my 1-month-old grandson is. Anyway, Noah making his, I think there was another appearance for him, but anyway, sorry, friends. But your iPhone Siri with the new beta, it's in beta testing right now. It's in the hands of developers. They are adding full AI integration into Siri, which is going to be game changing for what you use it for. If you use that capability, not everybody's on an iPhone, I know, but it's going to be a big deal because, you might be able to go to Siri and still ask Siri a basic question like, what day of the week does Christmas fall on this year or whatever, like whatever. But you can also say to Siri, hey, Siri, I think the example in the article was about cocktails, but for me, it would be, recipes. What can I make with whatever's in my fridge? What can I make with a sweet potato and, rotisserie chicken, and it will go to ChatGPT. It won't just give me search results. It will go to ChatGPT and potentially even give me a recipe. So Siri is getting like a makeover in that it will decide, hey, shall I check ChatGPT for this or is this still a Google search kind of thing? And it's going to be really interesting. Nope, wasn't inviting you in, love. Sorry.
Well, it's interesting. It's like, well, it's factored into those because today we didn't have a chance to put the link in. I don't think we need to. Everybody can see it. ChatGPT launched ChatGPT search today.
Yeah. Yes. I haven't really dug into that yet.
And it's supposedly totally real time, just like Google or any other search engine. So it'd be, as you mentioned, that integration with Siri, that type of stuff. My bet is that's where that's going to go.
Yeah.
It'll be integrated with the GPT search. Which, boy, whole new marketing game for that.
Yeah.
So,
and let's just talk about the related kind of, OpenAI news, because we were talking about this happening before the end of the year. GPT-5, whatever they do with it, the report says it's possibly codenamed Orion. Interesting. Orion.
I think Orion.
Orion. I'm picturing all of a sudden, like, is it Men in Black with Orion's belt on the cat collar?
Right. Maybe.
We'll see. Anyway, so Orion. Either way, the report says that it's 100 times more powerful than GPT-4, although it's not clear what that means exactly. Right. But supposedly it's coming out in December, and it may not be available to everybody. Like, we may not all be in this. This may be reserved for people that they have partnered with. It might be in the Microsoft system specifically. We don't know all of the details, but it is definitely coming. And again, we don't know if it'll be on Apple. We don't really know too many of the details, but it's going to be a big deal.
Man, 100 times more powerful. If it's 100 times more powerful than O1, which is what I've been using, O1 beta.
Yeah.
I know.
What does that even mean? I know.
Right. I'm not sure I can conceptualize.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I think we've gotten to this point where we know what it can do now. We know what's possible now, but this next, like every time it's like, God, what is possible next? I don't know what this is going to be. So pay attention. So we'll be talking about it, obviously, because this will now, if they just said it's, there's glimpses of it now. There's, talk. There's a report. It's speculative, but Lenny and I will sure as heck be tracking it.
We will.
Ryan.
Well, that's probably a good segue. See, I'll use it too.
Yes, right.
The last little bit. The really interesting report from Morgan Stanley that 40% of AI projects have exceeded ROI expectations. With larger companies leading in Gen AI adoption due to better resources. And I think that was interesting because a few months ago, it's not what we were hearing. We were hearing these challenges of of ROI. And I
We
think we've
are.
turned the corner of pragmatic and practical business applications.
Right.
We talk about that every week here
Yeah.
within the research space, and that's changing things, right?
Yeah.
And as companies got a handle on this, of okay, well now, unfortunately, I have been paying 100 people to do this. I only need 10 now. So that there's unfortunate impacts from this.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's more along the line of, oh wow, this has helped me unlock a whole other revenue stream or way to increase efficiencies without decreasing headcount,
Yeah.
whatever. We've turned that
Yeah.
corner, and that's what
Yeah.
this report is really interesting,
Yeah.
to show that is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and yes, and I think as I was looking at the data, and again, not, admittedly not necessarily a data girl, but I have a great healthy appreciation for it all. One of the things in there was that it aligns with a report from Bain and Iconic Growth. So this is now, we have multiple data points confirming this, which is what I like to see. It's like, okay, that, they are all agreeing right
Yes.
now that this is a worthwhile investment that's paying off.
Yes.
So I think they're shoring up some of the early challenges. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's a good read. And then also this other piece that you found, or that
By
you
Andrew. Yeah.
it's exploring the synthetic data, the concept that all research is synthetic data. It's very philosophical. It's interesting. And one of the things I liked in it was, I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, I don't know how I feel about it. But then I look in the comments, and there's, Josh Seltzer at Next Intelligence, who's very versed in all of this and has spoken, about AI at our events too. He's deep in our ecosystem, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna, debunk all of this. And now there's a healthy debate happening, and Finn has weighed in. I'm like, all right, this is pretty interesting conversation. So, I don't know how I feel about it all because I haven't digested it all, but I'm like, I love when we have a healthy conversation and debate online, right?
Excellent. And Andrew Jevons, just shout out. Andrew's he's good at that. He's good at playing the curmudgeon, and taking the oppositional role, for that very purpose, and it makes you think. So he's great. I've never had the pleasure of talking to Andrew. He's a really fun. Cool. For that very reason. So yes, I agreed. I included, because I thought this is just an interesting discussion to think about data in a different way, because we've had this dichotomy, right? It's live or it's synthetic, and there's and synthetic is inferior to live. Like, well, I don't know. You step back and maybe not. And that was so it's a fun read, and the debate's fun to read as well.
Yeah, pretty cool. So let's wrap up our content here. But you want to shameless plug what you've got coming up in the next 2 weeks, because it looks like a good webinar you're doing.
It is. So our friends at Recollective, right? Every year, this time of year, we do a webinar. We've been doing it for years. It's just a thing that we do. We decided this year, a couple years ago, we did Future of Insights communities. I think it was 2019, before AI. And we thought, let's revisit that. Let's see what we predicted then, where we are now. So it's a fireside chat between myself and Laura Polito. It will be fun and interesting. So tune in. Excuse me, if you're focused on insights communities. I am bullish on all things qual. And as very well documented. And the community as the core of data. Go back to our previous conversation about owning the data and doing all those things. I'm incredibly bullish on that as well. Doesn't matter whether it's whatever platform you work with, right? The enabling technology to do that, I think, is just really important, and will yield great benefits. So, and that's there's a sneak peek of my position.
It's funny because in 2016, 2017, anyway, it was right as I was starting my stint at Insights Now, and Greg Stuckey had said to me, like, oh, let's do a webinar on the future of qual. And he was like, so you're coming out of a qualitative career, what do you think the future of qual is? And I remember clear as day being like, well, duh, it's empathy. Like, the future of qual is all about empathy. at the time, nobody was really talking about empathy. So we did this whole webinar on empathy. And every time I saw that over the last few years, I'm like, yep, nailed it. Yep. So anyway, so now I want to see what you guys are doing now so that in the future we can say, yep, nailed it.
Yeah. So. And lastly, before we say that, guys, it's always, oh yes, we nailed it. But the reality, if you just pay attention, it's really damn easy. The only difference is we pay attention because we live, breathe, eat, and defecate this stuff. Right?
So I don't know if it's easy. I wouldn't dismiss it. I don't know that it's easy for everybody.
Well, sure.
I think that there are some people who just need people to light the way and show them. And even if it's just a speculative idea, it helps them. Because this is why consumers can't predict the future, right? Because if you're not doing this, it's not always that easy for them. It's challenging to think about future intent or future happenings. That's why we can't predict what will happen, in a day or 2 or 5 or 7. We just can't. We're not good at prediction.
Fair enough. All right. Well, on that note. Yes.
On that note, let's have everybody have a great weekend and wish you all well. And we will be back soon.
Yes. Enjoy first weekend of November.
First weekend of November.
All right. Bye, everybody.
It's going to be great. Take care, Lenny. Bye-bye.
Bye.